everyone. Today we are going to learn about apply, call and bind method in the JavaScript. Okay. So suppose we have function like details var details equal to function, and we have some parameters in the function like age, comma, gender. Okay. And we can print this function like that console.log. These will be the details about a person. Okay, these will be details about a person. So we have this function. We can call this function details. We just need to provide age 23 and gender of the person, suppose male. So let's run this program and see the output. We are calling this function, so output should be 23 then space then male. Let's run this program and see the output. So initially details will be undefined. We will execute line number 2. So details will have a function. See, details have this function, and at line number 6 we are calling this function. We are passing to arguments. 23 will be age and male will be gender. So we are calling this function. So this line number 3 will be executed, and in the output box it will print 23 space male. Okay, 23 space male is printed. So execution of this program is completed. And suppose we have an object called person1 var p1 equal to, it has a key like name, and name is nothing but Bob. And suppose we want to print name also in this function. So how we can print name? We can pass person1 as an argument. Okay, we are passing person1 as an argument. So we have to have an object to receive these arguments like person object and person dot name. So like this. So what we are doing, we have a person p1. Name of the person1 will be Bob. Okay, and we are calling this details function, and we are passing arguments p1 and 23 male. Age will be 23 and gender will be male, and person will have this object name equal to Bob. And in console.log line number 3 we are printing person.name, then age, then gender. Here also I should apply some string concatenation. Okay, so let's run this program and see the output. It will print Bob space 23 space male. So initially details and p1 is undefined. So now details will have this function and p1 will have this object. Okay, name Bob. And at line number 10 we are calling this function, and line number 3 we are printing this function. Okay, execution will go to line number 3. Okay, so in output box Bob space 23 space male will be printed. See, Bob 23 male. Okay, and suppose I don't want to receive person as an argument. So how we can receive Bob person1 as an argument and we can print it? So there is a concept called call in the JavaScript. Okay, we can use the call function in the JavaScript, and we can apply this dot name, and we don't need to provide person parameter. So what we are doing, we are using a method call in JavaScript. Details is the function. We are using call method, and we are passing our person1 argument and 23 age and gender male. So age will be 23 and gender will be male, and p1 will be this. p1 will represent to this dot name will be p1 dot name. p1 dot name is nothing but Bob only. Okay, so if we run this program it will work perfectly fine. So initially details and p1 will be undefined. Now p1 has this object name equal to Bob. At line number 10 we are calling this function, and execution will go to line number 3, and it will print p1 dot name. This dot name will be Bob, then age 23, then gender male. Let's run this program. So in output screen, Bob23 male is printed. So this is one way to apply a call method while calling this function, detail function, and using this call method, we don't need to provide p1 as an argument. We can use this one dot whatever property we want to access from the p1 object. Okay, so this is call in the JavaScript. Suppose now I have one more parameter in this function, like height 510 comma 10, and we are receiving height here, HEI height, and we are printing height also, HEI height. So we are passing one more argument here, height 510, and we are receiving height of this person in the height parameter, and we are printing height also. Let's run this program and it will work perfectly fine. So here, name of the person Bob, then age 23, male, gender, and height 510 will be printed into the output box. Yeah, into the output. Suppose we have many number of arguments, so it is difficult to handle these number of arguments while calling the function and in receiving in these parameters. So instead of doing that much of work, we can pass these arguments as an array. So passing these arguments, we need to use apply method in the JavaScript. Details.apply. We need to pass the object, then it will be into the array. Like 23 will be age and male and height 510. So in this apply method, we are calling details function and we are passing these arguments into the array. Okay. These arguments we are passing into the array, and in the call method we were passing these arguments directly. Okay, with the apply method we are passing these arguments into the array. So these arguments will be passed into the array. So age will have 23 and gender will have male and height will have 510. So even if we use apply method and we pass the arguments into the array, even after this also, it will perfectly work fine. Let's run this program and see the output. So initially details and p1 person will be undefined. So now we have initialized p1 and details function, and details.call will print Bob age 23 male, then 510 height. Okay, we have seen earlier. Now we are executing this apply method. So p1 will be the person and 23 will be age and male will be gender and height will be 510. Okay, so using this apply method also, this will work perfectly fine. Execution will go to line number 3, and line number 3 we will print Bob 23 male 510 again. Okay, so let's execute line number 3. So see, with the apply method also we were successfully able to print Bob 23 male 510. So this is all about apply and call method in the JavaScript. In the call method we pass arguments as an individual arguments. In the apply method we pass arguments as an array. Okay, and p1 object will represent by this dot name and this dot property, this dot key. Okay, and suppose we want to learn about bind also. Bind is just binding the data with the function. Okay, so suppose we want to bind data like details dot bind. We want to bind our data with the details function. Okay, we can pass the argument similar to call function, similar to call method. So what we are doing with in this detail function, we are binding the data, a p1 object to 23 age male and 510 height. Okay, so if we run this program, then nothing will happen. Okay, we will not print anything. See, last of the program, execution is completed and only we are printing through the call function and we are printing through the apply method. Okay, we are not printing anything with the bind, because if we print suppose we apply console, if we if we apply console.log to this bind method, then it will print this function. Okay, so bind returns this function itself, and data will be binded into this function. Okay, p1 will be used in this float name. Age will be 23, male, gender will be male, height will be 5'10". Okay, bind the data with this function. Okay, if we run this program, then it will print this function. Okay, let's run this. So we will go to end of the line. So see, it is printing function bound. Function is bound. This function is bound. Okay, this function is bound using details dot bind. Okay, so what we can do, instead of printing this function, we can receive this function into a parameter. Like, we can catch this function, this return function, into parameter like return. We can catch this because details dot bind will be returning a function, and we can catch this return function into this variable return bind function. And if we call return bind function, we can call return bind function like this. Okay, so return bind, if we call return bind function, then this line number 3 will be printed. It means at line number 16, what we are doing, we are binding the data with the function. So this function will be returned, this function will be returned, and we are catching this function into this variable. Okay, and if we call this variable, it means we are invoking this function. It means we are calling this function. Okay, because we have catched this function into the return bind function variable. If we invoke or call this variable, it means we are invoking this function. So line number 3 will be executed. Let's run this program and see the output. So right at line number 14, we are printing the return function, this function. Okay, this function will be returned, and line number 14, we are printing this function only. So this function is printed because using console.log we are printing the return function. At line number 16, we are catching return function into this variable. Okay, so see, this variable return bind function, this variable has this function. Okay, return bind function variable has this function. At line number 17, we are calling this function. Okay, we are calling this function. So line number 3 will be executed, and it will print the details. See, when we call this variable, execution will go to line number 3. So line number 3 will be executed, and it will print Bob, 23, gender male, and height 5'10". See, Bob 23 male, height 5'10 is printed. So this was all about apply, bind, and call methods in the JavaScript. With apply method, we can call this function details function, and we can pass the arguments 23 male and 5'10 height in these parameters, for these parameters, and p1 object will be represented by this dot key value. Okay, this dot key. And similar to call method, we can use the apply method also. In apply method, arguments will be passed using the array. In the call method, we were passing the arguments individually, like 23 male 5'10". But in the apply method, we are passing the arguments as an array. So 23 is the first element of the array, male is second element of the array, 5'10 is the third element of the array. Okay, and using bind will not invoke the function. What bind will do, bind is similar to call, parameters will be similar to call method only, but bind will bind these data with this function, and it will return the function. It will not invoke this function. It will not details function. It will not invoke details function. It will just bind these data with this details function, and we can catch return function into the return bind function variable, and we can call this variable, and we can while calling this function, we can invoke this function. So line number 3 will be executed. Okay, so it's very important to learn about apply, call, and bind methods in the JavaScript. because it is mostly asked into the JavaScript interviews